We've got a 12 by 16 canvas here, and I'm going to do a scene I haven't done in, oh my gosh, long time. So, the first step we got to do is we got to prep our canvas. And look at this, I'm using the big old 2-inch brush on such a small canvas. That should just take us like 14 seconds to cover the entire canvas with the thin coat of the liquid white. Picking some up, scrubbing some in. Last little bit down here. Well, look at this. It's my day off from classes. And I might have a class coming up tomorrow, I'm not sure. So, wanted to get a video in here. Trying to meet my weekly obligations. I am just about 100 watch hours away from becoming a full-fledged YouTuber. Practicing my smash that like button or whatever the subscribe is. I don't know. I think I still need some practice with that. So, look at that. Already done. Might have took a little longer than 14 seconds, but not too much longer. So, big old brush makes that really quick work. I can already see I'm going to have a stack of brushes to clean at the end. So, let us put in a happy little sky here. And I don't really know what we're going to do. What are we going to do? I think I'm going to take a little bit of Indian yellow. Knock a little bit of paint in there. Not very much. And let's just drop some in here. Ooh, that was a lot. That came out pretty bold, didn't it? Without cleaning the brush, I'm going to get just a hopefully smaller amount of the bright red. And let's drop some in here, overlapping that Indian yellow a little bit. Not really doing any more than that. Maybe a touch without cleaning the brush. Just a little bit of yellow ochre. Maybe drop a little more in here. And you can see here, the more I go over it, the more it mixes with the liquid white. And those colors all start melting together. Look at that little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of bright red still in my brush. Just kind of hitting all those colors. Seeing what happens. I'm filling down here. Something like that. Not really trying to make any one particular color or streak there, just whatever happens kind of happens. Now, I'm really going to knock the excess paint out of the brush. Look at that. Now I can go over the whole thing again, just super light. Takes out any final little brush marks, gives it a final softening. Look at that, some nice little things happening in here. But not enough little things. So, let's mix up just a quick little bit of purple, which is alizarin crimson and a touch of the phthalo blue. I could have done this on the brush, but I didn't really want to overload my brush. So, right off the bat there, look at that nice royal purple. What I call royal purple anyway. Just a nice medium, not too red, not too blue. And that's it. Look at that. Hardly any paint. And I tell you what, let's drop some in here. And then start softening it. I'm just trying various pressures here with my brush. I push a little harder to melt that color together, and then a couple of light strokes to finish it off. See that? It doesn't take very long. Doesn't take very much effort. I tell you what, maybe if I were to put a couple little things here, then wipe the excess paint out of my brush and then just soften it. Get it to almost disappear. Ooh, I like that. Just getting all sorts of colors. You want a little bolder? Let's try it. Just tapping in some color, then blending it. You can come back here, maybe a little bit more red. And you can vary this color up and you can play around with it a number of times here until you get the desired effects. Okay? Maybe just a little darker, maybe just some little streakers. See that? Little streakers. Just to get some variation in there. It's all up to you. I don't tell you how to do it. All right, I tell you what I do want to do, one color I did not put out yet, I realize I'm just gonna do that, just a little touch of the midnight black. Got that nice purple color, and there's a couple of ways to get a darker shade there. Use more paint on your brush, or just add a little bit of black to it. Just want to darken this down a little bit. Let's take a little bit more. Let's see what that does. Wipe the excess paint out of my brush. Notice I'm not going into the paint thinner here, just stirring out the excess. And let's see what we can do here. I'll pick up a little bit of that purple. I'm not sure if I have the right color or not, but let's find out. You know what? It's not bad. Just gonna drop in some little indications, some background trees. Maybe it comes down a little bit. Now you see when I make this pull, kind of makes this little point. If you play around with it, you can round them over a little bit or make them sharper, taller, shorter. Whatever you want. The more paint you use, the darker they appear. The less paint you use, the lighter they are. So I'm just trying to make an indication here, just something like that. Once again, I'll be doing a lot of brush wiping here, just knocking off the excess paint. Now, let's crush, kill, destroy the bottom edge. I didn't even test that liquid white. Did you see that? It's a very light amount. I brushed that in there, and I could tell just by looking and brushing that I did not have very much at all. You know, I always tap and show you there as long as you see a little fingerprint. Well, I had barely any fingerprint on it that time, but just enough to slide that paint around, and there's enough there to mix and lighten and do all that cool stuff in the sky. Alright. Very light crisscrosses at the bottom just to blend that stuff away. Maybe if you want to, you could lift up. Give that a little vertical feel. Maybe pull up a few little hairs, little bush treetops, I should say. Look at that. All this down here is mist. Now, let's see what happens if I just go into a little bit of that midnight black and just a touch of the purple. I want it to have a little purple cast, but much darker. I'm tapping away from the pile just to get most of that paint off my brush, and let's see what I can do. I really like the sound of this brush. we go. I did get a slightly different color there, didn't I? Now I'm just going to destroy, create that mist. With that liquid white just starts coming through when I'm just pounding it. I used to play a lot of guitar, heavy metal rhythm guitar, believe it or not, and I always have this, I always count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, chunk, 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 chunk. It's like I feel like I'm keeping time, doing little Metalla riffs. Look at that. Isn't that fun? My favorite part, that little mist peeking out. All right. Maybe, just maybe, a touch of the blue and the black, purple, I don't know, don't really care. Maybe, I'm not even sure I needed to do this, but we'll have some little grass here. And here will be the shadows of said grass. I think I could have got away without it. But you know what? I've got the paint on the brush, so I got the paint on the palette too. Might as well use some of it. And I'm just going to keep tapping and soften that down a little, kind of create the lay of the land. One of my favorite Bob phrases. Yeah. You see here, doing the tapping thing, it softens, it lightens, it removes excess color. I like it. Now, what should I do? Let's come up with a highlight color here. A little bit of this cadmium yellow. Working some into my brush. Come over here, get a little bit of green in it. That's a nice color. And kabam! Kabam! Dropping some in there. Maybe I'm covering up too much, I don't know. I think that dark underneath helps dull the color down a little bit as I'm tapping. Who's to say? Now, boy, I'm just feeling like I'm flying through this. I'm going to take a little bit of the Van Dyke brown, maybe a touch of the dark sienna. Maybe put a little bit of dirt here. Now I'm just sort of rubbing the knife, letting some of it come off here, right at the base of the grass. Really not trying to, like, you know, slather it on or anything like that. You know, I think before I do too much else, I think I might have jumped ahead, didn't I? I might have jumped ahead. So, in order not to jump ahead, maybe we got to put a little bit of water in here. Just a little indication of some water. I told you it's been a while since I did this. I'm just going off a picture, and here I am staring at the picture going, I am getting so much closer to the water, I better do something with it. There we go. Little indication of water. Now I'll just rub some in there. Good. And if I were to take a little bit of a white, maybe mix it into that color, or add a touch of dark sienna, cut off a little roll, maybe just hit it here and there. Not looking for a great deal of highlight or anything special there, but a little bit hits it now and there. Why not? Why not? Then I'll take just a touch of the liquid white, maybe create a little waterline. I'm getting a tiny, tiny roll on the corner. I'm sorry. I can't even talk. I'm going too fast. A little bit on the side of the knife, just like if we were doing mountains here. And letting a little bead come off. I don't really want it to be like a thick white stripe. As I like to tell my students here, this is supposed to be subtle. Just an indication of a waterline here and there. Here and there, not everywhere. If it's a little too strong, just keep rubbing it and it'll disappear. There. There it is. Look at that. Not too hard. I'm going to clean out that fan brush here. I'll be using it again. And we got to mix up a big batch of color. Now, I think this scene is something known as, autumn. It's an autumn-based painting here. So instead of using like mountain mix and green as my background shade here, everything's just a little darker. So how about I use the rest of the crimson, the appropriate amount of blue, and then just a nice big lump of my two browns and just maybe a wisp of green. So what we're going for is a very brown shadow. Got those nice brown colors, gives you that 70s feel. Lots of browns and oranges. See that? I know it looks black there on the screen, but if I was to take a little bit of white and rub the rest of this paint off, look at how it's almost like a brownish gray. But nice and brown for our use here. That'll give you an indication of what we're going for. More brown than green. I'll tell you what, I'm going to save that green brush. I'll save it for later. You'll know why in a minute. But let's take a mid-painting sip here. I'm feeling a little parched. A nice brown drink as well. We'll call that, let's just say iced tea. All right, so let's make some messes here today. I am going to use a couple of different brushes, I think. What the heck? First off, I'll use my 1-inch brush. I'm going to hold that brush basically level. Okay, and I'm using the tips of the bristles to pull some paint in, but not paddling a canoe here. I try to keep it level. Excuse me. Once you see I pull down a few times, you see how it creates this rounded edge? There, now I can look at my viewfinder. I want that rounded edge facing up. I load like this, and then I come up to the canvas, 180 degrees. So let us make a That's a special move. We call it the Bend those bristles. Load that brush. Working my way down, and look how the bristles bending creates all this nice leaf effects. Alright, come down into the water. Then look at this, just want to push. I'm holding the brush sideways now. I push. It creates all this border here in the front. All this land just pops right into the foreground. Ugh. Anything you don't like, we'll cut off. I'm just going to drop this in. Okay. Maybe. Bob will also take this brush and pull it through this way using the full width of the brush. And we're going to make some trees on this side. Let's just tap the brush. And it makes a different effect. I got these little sections start building our way down the scene here. It's a real shaggy looking tree, isn't it? Maybe we got two trees here, so I'll make one like that, and maybe one is here in the foreground, and I'll make it like this one. You should be able to see the slight difference in effect just by a different application of the brush. Something like that. Now, I am fighting the edge of the canvas here. Maybe there is another one. It's kind of working its way down the side here. Something like that. Now, let's put in a little bit of land here, a little bit of foreground, and this just needs to be dark. I'll tell you what, let's just fill it all in. Look at that. Ooh, if this was a winter painting, that would just look super snowy. All right, let us figure out what's next here. Yeah, a little higher. All this needs to be is just dark, something like that. Isn't that nice? Maybe there's more bushes here. Drop one in if you think there's going to be one. Cover up, whatever you want. Figure out the rest later. All right, well, I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to swirl all through my nice fresh paint thinner here. Now it's all dirty brown. Knock the excess paint off, and where's my beater bucket? Clean off all the excess paint, and just to be on the safe side, just gently dry it in a clean napkin there. Was that a clean napkin? Well, I don't think so. Most of it was clean, but I had a spot from where I rested the brush. Okay, so let us make a color here. I'm going to dip into a little bit of the liquid white, and then I'm going to pull down right on through, just teasing down that yellow, what is that, Indian yellow. Look at that. This is what we're going for here. Come on, focus. See that nice texture there? Lots of paint going up into those bristles. This is important. You have a lot of paint loaded up there. More paint, the better. But we still want the bristles to be somewhat separated. Kind of looks lacy on the tips of the bristles there. So you know you have a lot. Slightly above the dark, and it's just a gentle push. Create this nice little arc. Reload the brush. Drop down a little bit, add another little arc, reload the brush for each little section, and you are trying to stick paint to paint. You want a nice batch of color coming off your brush. We don't want to be mud mixers, right? You want to make sure that that color shines through, so if you don't have enough paint, it's not going to be very bright. You want to see the color, use more paint. There it is. Now I may have dropped down a little too far, so I'm just going to try to sneak that in there just a little bit. That's it. Now if you want there to be a bush under that tree, when I mean under, I mean in front of, I'm going back to my yellow-green brush here, and I just change the color. Find the color that works here, just using that same technique to get a lot of that paint on the tips of this brush. And watch this, I just drop in a happy little bush living out there in front of this tree. Maybe another little section right there. Don't worry about the bottom, that doesn't matter right now. You make that bush however you like it. We're good to go. All right, let's see here. If I was to take a drop of the paint thinner, we're talking a drop, a single drop, no more liquid white. I just want to pick up some of this bright red, then bring it down through this Indian yellow mix, and it's going to kind of create this dull, almost rusty orange. See that? Nice rusty orange. And let's go ahead. Ooh, I forgot which way my brush was. Let's see. There it is. And I'm just going to create a little crown right across the top there. And as I work my way down this section, it starts getting darker and duller. Reload. Add another little bright spot. There we go. As I'm going through this here, this is one reason why Bob puts out what looks to be like half a tube of paint. You gotta have a lot of paint in order for you to be able to load the brush as many times as you're going to do so here. So a little bit more of that yellow color, add a touch of the red, maybe a little more till you find that color. Come on down here and let's add another section to our tree. Reload the brush for each little clump of foliage. There we go. Now, I did say something about adding in a different tree in front of this one. Okay. Maybe if I was to take a little bit more of the alizarin crimson, we're going to try to really dull down this color. Something else, something completely different from this one. And let's just drop that clump in there. It's darker, it's deeper in shadow. It's a little harder to see. Working my way down to the bottom here. There we go. Something like that. Not too shabby. So I think here, switching up the colors yet one more time, I've got all this yellow ochre here. not even cleaning the brush. I'm just going to load the large amount of paint into my brush. And add a whole different tree. It's still very fall looking, isn't it? I love these colors here. The leaves are all turning, but they're not dead yet. They're not falling off quite yet. And maybe a little bush at the bottom of this one. Nice. Okay, now I've loaded up a whole heck of a lot of color in that brush. I'm going to move back to my greeny brush. I think I need just a little bit more of the liquid white. We need to thin this down. And when you use a lot of liquid white, it really lightens it. So you might need to dull this back down again. I'm going to take a little bit of the phthalo blue. That dulls this down a little bit. Pulling back and forth. Look at this chiseled edge that's starting here. Those bristles are really starting to come together. And then when I push or tap, it really brings them up right on the tips of the bristles. That's what we're looking for here to start creating our land formation here. And I'm just tapping, sort of connecting these two areas here, working my way down. And let's sort of define where this bush ends here just by tapping away. Create this little section here. And look at this. We can do a heck of a lot just with one brush full. As this goes closer to us here, it starts mixing more with the brown, and it just keeps getting duller and duller. Duller and duller. Let me take a step back. Let's see what we get. I always recommend standing back a little bit. See what's doing. A little bit right there. Now, before I do too much else, we're going to have a little path there. So a little bit of the Van Dyke brown, maybe some dark sienna. Just going to pull some of this into my brush, and I tell you what, using the corner of the brush, or at least the left half of the brush, not the whole thing, I'm just going to pull in. Maybe we get a little bit of the path up there. There it is. Then I just start pulling down and away. Now you can have this path look really, really flat, or maybe if you give it a little bit of an angle, it really just looks like it's very concave. I'm just going to touch and pull sideways. Trying to figure out here. It's a little bit uneven, so if I come over the grass and then pull in, it just makes it a little more of an uneven edge. Something like that, maybe. Okay, maybe this path kind of comes down this way instead. I don't know. Just trying to figure things out here. I tell you what, let's call that good for now. And let's get a little bit more of the green up on the other side. Let's sort of really define the lay of the land here. And gotta get that paint just right. Bring some of that down. If it overlaps the path a little bit, that's okay. Good. Maybe a little bit more right in there. And I get some texture on there. More paint, more texture. Then, let's just say maybe there's a little hill right here. Just tap in the angle that you like. I think this color changes a little bit. So I added in a little bit of yellow ochre. Maybe you can see the color change, maybe not. You're more than welcome to clean out your brush and get whatever colors you're looking for there. There we go. I suppose need just a little bit of a highlight on our path, or else it'll look a little boring there, a little dark. And I might want it to do that before I put in all the grass, but we can still sneak this in. Little bits of highlight here and there. Don't want it too strong. But angles are very important. That'll determine if your path is nice and flat for you to walk on, or if it looks like it's a cliff edge. Something like that. I think I need to come right down there. There it is. Nice. Very, very simple, very, very fun. What else is there? What else is there? We're barely at 38 minutes. Isn't that something? We just dropped that in super quick, and we gotta have something else. We gotta have something else. Maybe a couple old dead sticks and twigs, and maybe an old dead tree. So I'm going to thin down this Van Dyke brown, a couple of brushfuls of thinner, so this paint is really just like dripping down. If you're holding that brush vertical, that paint should be dripping down. And look what I just did. Bob doesn't do that. What the heck? So maybe there's an old dead tree kind of coming out like that. Try to avoid going over it too many times, or else it'll just melt through all that paint. There it is, the old dead tree there. Now, if I would have stopped, I wouldn't have made that little error, and I wouldn't be able to show you how to fix it. It's easy enough just to go back and pick up some grass color here, and let's see, it was right there. Just going right on over it, tapping forward here, and there it is. Just cleaned up that little happy accident. So with that being said, let's go ahead and sign this with a little bit of the bright white this time. What the heck? It's got a little brown in it, but it should still be quite visible. Right on down here. Sign my initials and the year. And with that being said, we've got ourselves a complete painting. In about, less than 41 minutes. Not too bad, not too shabby. So I want to thank you guys all for watching this one, or at least skipping around to the end. Thanks guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.